Bidding wars? What? This isn't 2021. Why are there bidding wars right now in Southern Missouri? Moving to Southern Missouri is the best thing I've ever done for my family. The market is on fire here right now. We predicted a very active spring market, but it has surpassed what we could have even imagined. Our own inventory is flying off the shelf. We have most weeks 4 different out-of-state families, usually families, coming in to shop. It's just been a lot. So I want to kind of describe to you guys in this video how you can get ready to come here, ready to shop, so that you can be prepared for the speed of the market. So as I was talking about bidding wars, something like the last 5 contracts, well, not the last 5, we've probably have like 2 or 3 that we've put in that didn't have a bidding war, but the 5 before that were all bidding wars, and kind of surprised me to see how much competition. I mean, when the market opened up, it's just been like crazy fast. Inventory has been selling crazy fast. So with that in mind, I think it's really important that when you come here, especially when you're coming to shop, that you have all your ducks in a row. First duck to get in a row, to get in line, is to really figure out exactly how you are going to do financing. And maybe that even means having a few different options. If you are a cash buyer, hey, there's not much you need to really figure out other than potentially kind of figuring out your whole life and how you're going to move stuff. And if you need to stay somewhere during closing, there's still a lot of moving parts, but at least the biggest thing is figured out for you, which is financing. But for the rest of us, most of us are using financing. And so that should be figured out really before you start shopping. So the first step is to get pre-approved and to make sure really that you share that pre-approval letter with me. And often that's not asked for during shopping, just to like look at a property, but it's really important to have because there's been so many deals lately where a lot of people didn't even expect that they wanted to put in a contract. They weren't really prepared. And then last minute, they want to get that contract in and they weren't totally ready. And it can be the difference if there's a bidding war between getting the property and not getting the property. And a little offshoot of that regarding lending is if you are VA, I want you to, one, recognize that not every seller is going to accept a VA loan. And I also want you to realize that for some sellers, it's seen as more risky to accept a VA loan. One, they legally are responsible for repairs, right? So we've been doing a lot of VA loans lately, and which is awesome because that means that there's a lot of vets that are moving to Southern Missouri. But we just had one, and there was enough room where we could get extra concessions and kind of leave that to the side for the seller to pay them back if there are any repairs. And doing little things like that can really help to sweeten the pot for someone that may be kind of unsure if they want to accept a VA loan. The other thing I want to talk to you about real quick is to get your earnest money ready. So what that means is that in Missouri, when we write a contract, we put down earnest money, which goes towards your purchase price. But that money is held in escrow, and really how it's seen in Missouri is just like skin in the game. It's like you're putting your money, you're putting your money where your mouth is. But people really do expect it here. It's very rare that contracts are accepted without it. And yeah, it's a definite huge negotiation plus. So be prepared depending on the price of the property. So usually stuff that is $250,000 and under, we're putting 1,000 to 3,000 down. I mean, of course we have, especially on some lower stuff, put down $500. For a lot of the like lots and raw acreage at smaller pieces, we'll do recommend $500 and those get accepted. When you get into like $500,000 and above, I would say around even $400K, we tend to recommend $3,000 to $5,000 in earnest money. We actually had one family put down like a huge amount of earnest money to really show they were interested, and it did sway the seller. But I don't think that that's always necessary, and I don't think that you should put yourself in any kind of stressful position, but that you should be like, before you come shopping, start to save anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000 for your earnest money, and just have that tucked away, knowing that you're gonna have usually 5 to 10 days. 5 days is general for residential. Farm and land deals, it's usually 10 days to get that earnest money in. And so just have that detail ready to go, and it's going to make you feel more secure and ready to buy. So another portion of you are actually kind of in this in-between realm where you're kind of cash buyers, but you're kind of not, because you want to put in a contingency on your current home selling. Now, I do want to let you know, we are seeing a lot of contingencies lose out in negotiations to other buyers that are either cash or conventional or any kind of loan, actually, because some markets are at more of a standstill. And you really need to understand the perspective of the seller here in Missouri, where it's very risky for them to accept a contingency especially if someone is in, and I hate to say it, but some of the markets, certain parts of California, not all, some are so strong and some are less strong right now. Parts of Colorado, parts of Texas, those are the ones that are sticking out in my mind, but there's a lot of others, I'm sure, because there's so many little micro real estate climates. But we have seen a lot of those contingencies not be able to, be followed through on. So sellers around here started to get a little bit more apprehensive about contingencies. So here's what I'll say about it. People are still accepting them 100%. You have more of a chance of them being accepted if the property has sat a while, maybe has some issues, it's kind of like a fixer-upper, or there's just this like crazy like bright purple, bright red, orange. I've seen this in one house, like in brown paint. Literally all those colors in one house. Bright blue. Yeah, those houses, those sellers tend to accept contingencies more often. And then also I notice certain realtors really are quick to accept contingencies, where I admit, as a realtor myself representing my sellers, I'm a little bit more apprehensive about them because I've seen them go wrong so many times. And I want to explain to you how it works so that you are kind of prepared what that can look like. So you put in a contingency, right? To buy a home here, you need to sell a home out of state, and they accept. And what they probably are going to do, if their real estate agent is worth anything, they're going to ask you for a 72-hour kickout clause. Sometimes it's a 48-hour, but most of the time a 72-hour kickout clause. Everyone's going to sign that document. What that document says is that they are still allowed to actively market the property. They're going to be doing showings, and they will be accepting other competing contracts. Now, if they actually get another contract in that they want to sign, they have to first give that first contract 72 hours to resolve that contingency, or get a loan, get lending in line, anything like that, to be able to actually make good on that original contract. So that can be stressful, of course, because you can lose the home that you're planning on moving to, right? So that is just in general stressful. So what I recommend is, if you are going to shoot for the contingency, get financing as a backup plan if you can, right? I know that numbers can be tight, and sometimes you can't pre-approve for what you're about to buy, what your existing home could buy you if it's sold. So I understand that that's difficult, but I do recommend having it as a backup plan. And the reason why is because like when you're buying a home, emotionally unattached as like an investor, right? It's a place and you've already fallen in love with it and like that's the place you want. And I think that for me, it would be worthwhile to have to pay loan fees versus losing the home, right? Unless I was kind of wishy-washy about it. Like I've seen people like that where they're like, yeah, we'll buy this one. We just want to move out, but like, we might even sell in a few years. Like this isn't the perfect place for us, right? So I get it. And there's different ways to, feel when you are buying property. But I do recommend that people have a financing backup plan. Really, that's not a bad idea for no matter what your plan is, right? You should kind of always have a backup plan. I think it's particularly important when it comes to contingencies because that kick-out clause does make it very stressful. The other piece of advice I want to give people, which is really, really hard for some people, and man, like I get this, but hear me out. You need to be able to make decisions very quickly when you're very serious about purchasing. And when you find the house that, it checks enough boxes, it's never going to check every box, but when it checks enough boxes or what it doesn't check, you can fix, or you're just willing to sacrifice, or maybe you've lost your mind. You actually do. You love this property so much. You feel like it checks all the boxes. When that happens, you need to be prepared to jump on that property fairly quickly. I have had some clients that makes them very nervous to have to make a decision very quickly. And they tend to get the attitude of like, you know what? It's not in God's plan. We know that the one that's for us will work out. And I do hear that, except for hear me when I say this. If you're coming to Southern Missouri to shop in the spring or summer, you are going to have a lot of competition. And if you seriously want to secure a home, you need to be able to act quickly when you believe that you found it. So like right now, and I hate to say this because I don't want to pressure people, but when you find the right home, if you know that there's other interest, you can't sit on that and take 3 to 5 days to make that decision. Like you will miss out on that home 80% of the time right now. That is how much inventory is just moving. But what's exciting on the flip of that is that we're having a lot of inventory come on the market. So there is a good flow right now. There's a good flow. And what you can do if this is not your strategy, like moving quickly, if you don't want to do it, look for the home that is rough, that has no action, that it's going to be only people kind of like looking for a diamond in the rough that are going to probably, try to get a pretty heavy haircut on the price, right? They're going to be negotiating down. And that might be the sphere you want to stay in. But new inventory, if it's desirable, it is flying off the shelf. The last thing I want to say before I wrap up this video, in light of inventory flying off the shelf, there are multiple different ways that we can get a property wrapped up in a contract before you've made it out. One, you can sign a sight unseen waiver and just literally waive your right to see the property. That is what we did, and I do not necessarily recommend that. We are very much fly by the seat of our pants, like we'll figure it out on the way. Like that is just the kind of people that we are, and that is definitely not for all people, and it's not for everyone in the season that you're in, right? The season that you're in might not be fly by the seat of your pants, especially if you are looking for that last property. So if you don't feel so comfortable waiving your right to see a property, you can actually do the same waiver, but instead of waiving your right, you give yourself 5 to 7 days, usually on average, to fly out, drive out, whatever, and come see the property. And if you don't like the property, you can actually get out of that contract without any penalty. So those are just a couple ways that we can wrap up a property very quickly if we think that there's a lot of competition and you're in a hot market, especially certain areas of Christian County, Webster, even Wright, even Mountain Grove. Certain properties are going to fly off the shelf. All right, you guys, if you are coming on out to Missouri, now you know that it's a bit of a whirlwind out here, and I'm not even talking about the tornadoes. The market is super on fire right now, at least in South Central Missouri. So get ready for a fast pace of shopping. And if you need to get a hold of me, you guys, as always, everything's in the description. Call me, text, email me. We can set up a Zoom, and we will talk about the most exciting next phase of your life, which is moving to Southern Missouri. Okay, you guys, I'll see you soon. Bye.